When the checkered flag fell in Monza, the headlines weren't about Max Verstappen's win. It was about McLaren and a single radio call that left fans and experts stunned. With 9 rounds to go, Oscar Piastri's championship lead was cut, not by pace, not by strategy, but by a decision from his own pit wall. Told to give way to Lando Norris, Piastri complied, sacrificing not just track position, but perhaps the psychological edge in this title fight. Now, a week later, the young Australian has spoken, and while his words may sound diplomatic, the undertone is clear. McLaren is skating on thin ice. Piastri insists his loyalty to the team runs deeper than his personal ambition, but that very loyalty may be tested to breaking point. If you want to truly understand why this controversy could define the rest of the 2025 season, make sure you're subscribed, because what's unfolding at McLaren is bigger than just one race. The controversy at Monza wasn't just about a single radio message, it was about the philosophy of how McLaren manages its 2-star drivers, both of whom are fighting for the biggest prize in motorsport. And when you zoom in on the details, the situation becomes far more complicated than it first appeared. Let's start with a sequence of events. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris had been running second and third behind Max Verstappen for most of the Italian Grand Prix. The two McLarens were locked in formation, with Verstappen unreachable up the road. Then came the pivotal moment. Norris suffered a slow pit stop, handing Piastri the advantage. For the first time that day, the Australian was ahead of his teammate on pure circumstance, and crucially, in a position that could have extended his championship lead. But the mood in the McLaren garage shifted. With both cars clear of the rest of the field, the team asked Piastri to let Norris through, referencing the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix. Back then, Norris had allowed Piastri by so that the rookie could secure his maiden win. It was painted as an act of fairness, a way of giving back. This time, McLaren wanted the roles reversed. On paper, it sounds balanced. One favour returned for another. But context is everything. In Hungary, Piastri was hunting for a breakthrough moment, one that would define his entry into Formula One. In Monza, he wasn't chasing a maiden win, he was leading the World Championship. The stakes had shifted dramatically, and by yielding the place, Piastri not only sacrificed points, but also momentum in a title fight that is now essentially a duel between him and Norris. And that's where the controversy explodes. Fans, pundits, and even former drivers saw this as McLaren meddling unnecessarily in what should have been a straight fight between their two drivers. If both cars were safe from outside threats, why intervene? Why risk alienating the driver currently leading the championship? The answer lies in McLaren's long-term vision. Within the team, loyalty has always been a prized currency. They paid dearly to sign Piastri in the first place, spending around $20 million to buy Daniel Ricciardo out of his contract early. They took the risk on a rookie, and in return, Piastri has delivered with remarkable composure, speed, and consistency. On the other side of the garage, Norris has been the face of McLaren's modern revival, sticking with the team through lean years when he could have easily been tempted away by Mercedes, Red Bull, or even Ferrari. So what we have here isn't a clash of skill, but a clash of loyalty. Both Piastri and Norris have earned the right to expect trust from the team. And when both drivers feel that sense of entitlement, every team order becomes a potential landmine. For Piastri, Monza was the first big flashpoint. But his response has been fascinating. Instead of raging publicly, instead of throwing the team under the bus, he has doubled down on loyalty. His message has been clear: I cannot succeed without McLaren's success, and so protecting that relationship is more important than one race. It's a diplomatic stance, one that reinforces the bond with the team. But beneath the surface, many sense an implicit warning. Piastri is reminding McLaren that while he's willing to play the team game, he expects reciprocity. He expects fairness, not favoritism. And let's not forget who manages Piastri: Mark Webber. If anyone knows the dangers of team orders gone wrong, it's him. His infamous clashes with Sebastian Vettel at Red Bull, Multi-21 still echoes in F1 lore, show how favoritism can fracture even the most dominant team. Webber's presence in Piastri's corner adds another layer of intrigue. He'll be advising Oscar not to burn bridges publicly, but behind the scenes, you can bet he's keeping score. Meanwhile, Norris finds himself in an equally complex situation. On one hand, he's justified in expecting the team's backing. He's been the loyal soldier for years, turning down offers and anchoring McLaren's rebuild. On the other, he risks being painted as the beneficiary of favoritism, something that could tarnish his reputation among fans if it continues. Norris wants to be seen as the driver who wins on merit, not by courtesy calls from the pit wall. For McLaren leadership, this is a nightmare wrapped in a dream. They've built the best car on the grid. They're on the verge of a Constructors' Championship that could be sealed earlier than ever before in F1 history. And yet the success carries its own poison. The closer they get to glory, the harder it becomes to manage the egos, ambitions and narratives swirling inside their own garage. Andrea Stella, the team principal, has already announced a review of their driver policies, but his wording was careful. He said the team would reflect on how they approach racing decisions, but warned that reflection doesn't necessarily mean change. In other words, McLaren may not adjust their approach, even if fans and analysts demand it, and that raises the stakes even higher for the coming races. What happens if the same scenario plays out again? Imagine Piastri ahead of Norris with 5 laps to go in Baku, or later this season in Suzuka or Abu Dhabi. Do McLaren dare issue the same call? And if they do, will Piastri obey again, or will he finally dig in his heels? Speculation is already swirling. Some insiders believe Zak Brown views Norris as the team's long-term anchor, the face of McLaren for the next decade, and thus subtly leans toward protecting his title bid. Others argue Brown sees Piastri as the future world champion in waiting, the driver who can carry the team into a new era of dominance. If true, Monza may have simply been a one-off, a decision rooted in momentary caution rather than policy. But in Formula One, perception often matters as much as reality. And the perception right now is that McLaren chose Norris over Piastri. If that narrative takes hold, the damage to trust could outlast the season. Here's the bigger picture. McLaren don't just want to win titles, they want to build a dynasty. That means keeping both Piastri and Norris under contract, united and motivated. But dynasties aren't built on fragile loyalties. They're built on clear rules, clear boundaries, and the ability to let the drivers race while managing the fallout. Right now, McLaren are dangerously close to repeating the mistakes of past teams. Think Mercedes with Hamilton and Rosberg, or Red Bull with Vettel and Webber. Both ended in fractured relationships that reshaped the sport. And that's why Monza wasn't just another race. It was the first crack in McLaren's seemingly unbreakable armor. The question is whether that crack can be sealed, or whether it will split wide open as the pressure of a title fight mounts. With 9 rounds left, every decision from here could tip the scales. Does Piastri stay patient, trusting that loyalty will be repaid? Does Norris embrace the role of team leader, or does he push back against the favoritism narrative? And perhaps most importantly, does McLaren have the strength to hold this championship fight together, or will history repeat itself with another civil war inside a dominant team? So, what happens next? Does McLaren stay true to their fairness first philosophy, or does Zak Brown eventually pick a side between his 2 stars? And more importantly, if the team orders come again, will Oscar Piastri still obey, or will he finally draw the line? What do you think? Was Monza the spark of an internal war at McLaren, or just a bump in the road to glory? Let me know in the comments below.